Welcome, spiders. It's good to be here today with my friend Abbie, who I've known for quite a long time, even though I didn't realize it. I first heard her on the My Third Eye podcast with Ghost. Shout out Ghost. And I was listening to her stories about dreams and lucid dreams. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then synchronistically, we were able to connect through the Weaving Spiders Welcome. So, welcome, Abbie. It's good to see you today. And I'm really looking forward to asking you the ritual first question. I appreciate you coming on to the Local Listens podcast. So, to get started, let's hear, when did you start to speak your truth?
This is kind of a loaded question for me because um, I'm an educator. So, what are we taught? To not speak your truth, right? So, and I live in the Bible Belt. So it's this fine balance of being able to like express yourself. But I would say I learned reality transurfing, and from there I met our friend Bootsy Greenwood, and he gave me the platform, and the platform was great. It was people who are open-minded and willing to listen, and it's encouraged me to grow. So
Right on. Yeah, that's another great show on the Blue Collar Mystics podcast. I had a lot of fun listening to you guys share your dream stories, and I think we're going to share some fun stories today. And you know, for lucid dreaming or normal dreaming, I mean, there's so much to get into, and maybe it would help to start with like a brief overview. So I know you have something prepared. It's really, really beautiful presentation here. So if you're on video, I hope you guys appreciate this. We have uh, quite a few slides, and I know that in the grand scheme of dream topics, it's so difficult to cover everything because there's so much to be talked about. So we'll do our absolute best today. But whenever you're set, Abbie, you should be able to share your screen, and I'm really looking forward to diving into this because I know you put a lot of energy into this presentation, and I think it's a really cool way to introduce some of the big topics that we're going to dive into today. So let me know if you're having trouble with the screen share. We should be able to launch it off soon. There we go.
right.
All right. Take it away.
I taught this class through Bootsy Greenwood, actually, through his Get Coach program. He asked me to, dive into dreaming because it's just a topic that I'm very passionate about. So it took me a while to, condense it all and put it all together. But and my views on dreaming have evolved because when I first started, I really only found value in lucid dreaming. And and that's really kind of what Carlos Castaneda, one of my favorite authors, puts forth, that
Yes, yes.
dreaming is the ultimate goal. But I started to learn all the different, facets of it. So I did this course called The Implications of Dreaming and Why Your Dreams Actually Matter. So you can see I had to put it in. It's a big presentation. We might not go over it all, but there you have it.
Lots to talk about for sure. Yes.
So kind of start with, what are dreams? The better question really is, where are dreams?
Mm.
Because everyone thinks that dreams are not real. And that's one of the first things that we teach our children, that dreams aren't real. So it's
Just a
like you wake up
dream.
from a
Don't
nightmare
worry
and
about it.
it's just a
Just a
dream.
dream.
Yeah. But really it's a real place. It's actually probably more the real world than this world. Everything that exists in this world, whether you think you created it or not, came from the space of alternatives or the dream space. So um a good way of thinking about it is, it's the collective unconscious, like the Carl Jung. He's the person who suggested that. And he's right. Have you ever had a dream where you're somebody else in a completely different setting? There's no way your brain could have came up with it. My son, for one, once he told me that he woke up and he was an Asian boy and he was carrying a huge shovel and shoveling elephant shit in his dream. So
Nice.
he didn't make that up. That
Yeah.
was something he was accessing in the space of alternatives. Um, so the word alternative space comes from reality transurfing, a concept taught by Vadim Zealand that it's the eternity archive. It's where every single past, present, or future exists. So another way of looking at it would be the Akashic record.
Yep.
Uh, but it's not just every um, past, present, and future, it's every possibility as
Mm.
well. That's why sometimes you're yourself, but you look a little bit different, or you're seeing different variations of yourself that possibly never happened. Um, all ideas come from here. So when you hear nothing new under the sun, there's not. You're pulling it from the other side of reality. Um, and I have a funny story about that. Actually, I just learned about this tribe. Let me pull it up really quick. They're known as the Naskapi tribe of Labrador.
Mm. Where's Labrador?
Um, that's up at the Arctic, right?
Oh, okay, cool, cool. Yeah.
So they basically they're forest hunters and live in small family groups in isolation. So they've developed a tribal customs, religious beliefs, or they don't have tribal customs or religious beliefs. They basically just believe that in intuition and dreams.
Hmm.
And so they say that your human soul is nothing but your companion, and they call their soul my friend or the big man. And they basically believe that your dreams are you should be trying to use your dreams to establish a relationship with the soul or the big man, but you're going to be rewarded with better dreams if you try to create art from your dreams. So
Very interesting. I've also heard you speak on this experience where you built a school, right? Like you spent time building a school in your dreams, like you were constructing this place. And that kind of relates to another question about the Akashic. Like if you were to travel to some kind of library in your dream state, lucidly, and you could flip open some kind of book, would you be accessing information that you already knew? Like, is it, there's so many cool possibilities to consider with learning and creating while you're in this dreamscape. What do you think?
I, I mean, it's just the possibilities are endless.
Mm.
It's I also created a meeting space at Mount Shasta. I don't know if you heard about that one or not.
I
So
have, yeah, and I've heard Mount Shasta be described as like a Stargate, which is something I'm still trying to figure out what that really means. But it is really cool that we're gonna get into shared dreaming soon, and I definitely want to hear about Shasta and the school that you've built. Like maybe you're still working on it. I don't know. Hopefully I can attend someday. Like if tuition isn't too high.
well, um, yeah. Um, I guess should I just go back into this really quick or
Yeah, sure. Wherever you
okay.
want to go. Yeah.
So so dreams are all these things though.
Mhm.
Are they sometimes like precognitive? Absolutely. Do they are they just a place to store memories? You bet. I mean, it's a place to store memory. It's everybody's storage space. It's like it's cloud storage. Is it communication from your body? Yep. Your body can tell you exactly what disease is happening. And so all those things that you hear about dreams or your questions, what are they? They're yes and is my answer. It's yes and it's this.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
they're multi-layered.
I know for the physical symptoms or kind of like cues that you might get from your dreams. I know that you've mentioned acupuncture or acupressure points that they could align with. So I'm really excited to learn more about that as we get further in. Should be cool.
I think so. Okay. So a lot of people say that they don't dream, and the thing is we all dream. So to improve dream recall, I just, that's obviously like the first thing you got to fix,
Mhm.
right? You have to set the intention to remember. So if you set it before you go to bed, right before you go to sleep, I'm going to remember my dreams, but you could also do it right when you wake up. And then use affirmations. I've been lazy about journaling lately. So what I do is when I wake up, I do collect my dreams, which is where you kind of do a run through of everything you remember before you get up out of bed. So you close your eyes and run through your dream. But then if I forget anyway, I just tell myself something's going to happen today and it'll trigger my dream recall. And it
Mhm.
always does.
Always, yeah. I have a
And
question about that too. For dream recall, I've heard of different factors that might affect that. Like, I know, I think it's later in your presentation, you suggest facing north or like having your headboard facing north, and also like even the materials of the building that you're sleeping in. Like, I live in a pretty cheap apartment, and I'm assuming that maybe like the metals or things are built in a certain fashion that interferes with dreaming. And so I could vividly remember dreams when I'm out camping, like sleeping on the forest ground and all that. Like, it's much different. So I'm curious if you wanted to speak on that a bit.
um, well, so the idea of facing north, I think that has to do with the polarity, and we are
Mhm.
electric beings, so we're electromagnetic as well. So the North Pole is the magnetic one, South isn't. But so if you sleep with your head facing north, you're supposed to, it does make a difference in your dreaming, which, if you can't do that, which I can't in my house, it's just not possible. There's not a north facing wall.
Mm.
They'd say any wall but the west wall for whatever reason is actually even bad for your health.
Wow.
So I say, don't have your headboard facing west, do northeast or south, but north is preferable. um and then, yeah, as to the building, I hadn't thought about that, but I kind of got into the whole 5G and you know all of that. So I bought a Somavedic, which is this crazy device. It like way too much money, but it has like crystals and oils in it. And I got it, and then I was like, oh my gosh, the day it came in the mail, I was like, this is snake oil. I can't believe I bought this thing.
Is it
But it's
like this
also,
wearable device, like you would like sleep with it on, or what?
no, it's like kind of shaped like a UFO, and it's
Huh.
like it puts off a little bit of light, and you just plug it in.
Oh,
And um and it restructures water, the one that I bought. Okay. So you're
interesting.
supposed to be able to put a glass of water, a cup of water right next to it for 20 minutes, and then it'll restructure your water. So here I am, I get it. I'm like, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I bought this. Right. And then I go to lay down that night and I close my eyes. And after like a second, when you close your eyes and you kind of see, I don't know, like your blood vessels or whatever,
Yeah,
kind
or
of
like
like
the
static.
hypnagogic imagery behind your eyelids, like all that's
Yeah.
yeah.
But not even that yet. You just
Yeah.
close your eyes and it's just kind of like what you see behind your eyelids, right?
Yes, yes.
It turned into like this weird geometrical pattern.
Hmm.
And it was it was like a kaleidoscope. And it was just this most beautiful dance behind my eyes, like I was on a psychedelics or something, and I wasn't. It was just, so I opened my eyes. I was like, what the heck? So I lay back down. I do it again. It was like cymatics. It was restructuring the water in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
body. So I was
Wow,
like,
that's
oh,
fascinating. Yeah.
okay, this thing works. And then I kind of went into the whole, I was into electronics. I still am actually.
Hmm.
And one a component in electronics are crystal ovens, and they have crystals which oscillate at different frequencies.
Hmm.
So really, that whole idea behind this device isn't unsound. It's not all.
I'm glad
So
it wasn't snake oil. That's fascinating. And there's other devices I want to ask you about as we get further in. Like, there are these masks that you can wear, and they like will flash subtle lights to kind of remind you that you're in REM sleep, and you can check your reality and do whatever you do
well, you
whatever
might
you
have to
need to
tell
do.
me about those.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. We'll get to that eventually, because there's that's probably like a good segue into reality checks, because I know like it's difficult to get into that lucid state unless you're like training yourself and like kind of constantly reminding yourself that, even though our waking reality seems real, quote unquote real, the dreamscape and the way that our cortex functions while we're dreaming will make everything seem totally real, totally normal, totally rational, even when it's not at all. But that's
Tell me about it. I've had so many lucid dreaming triggers that are like they should have triggered lucidity. I'm like an eagle landing on my arm, and I'm
oh
just like,
yeah, yeah.
oh, an eagle landed on my arm. Like, am I dreaming? Absolutely not. This is real.
Yeah, right. It's like it's just another day, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so frustrating because so like the outlandish things in dreams don't trigger lucidity in
Mm,
me. It's unfortunate. It does for a lot of people, but
yeah. I want to
it's
tell
like
you really quickly too. Like, there's a funny story you just reminded me of because, like, when you close your eyelids and you saw this like psychedelic geometric pattern. I remember one time I was dreaming that this like old shamanistic figure gave me this pipe to smoke out of, and I took a little puff, and it was like DMT type, like super heavy, like crazy intense psychedelic experience. And I woke up like, oh, thank God I'm sober. Like, Jesus, like that was intense. And it was crazy to have that experience in a dream because I mean, there's no distinguishing that from reality. Like, I was tripping, and I didn't know like if I was gonna wake up and still be in that mind state. And thankfully I was like totally sober, totally fine. But it's crazy when you have those experiences. Like, I'm sure most people have experienced death or coming close to death in their dreams, and it's like, wow, like I really felt like I was actually doing it, like it was actually happening to me. And that's always fascinating to think about.
absolutely that's awesome. Actually, it reminds me of Carlos Castaneda when he's first learning, becoming an apprentice with Don Juan. He does a psychedelic called what they call the little toke,
Hmm.
and inside the little toke is actually some Mexican psilocybin and other things. But yeah, it's really intense. So it's kind of weird. You almost explained that scenario.
Ah, wow, yeah.
Okay, so I guess to finish this
Mhm.
really quick. So other ways to improve dream recall. This is from my friend Tim. He does EMDR therapy, and he said that what he had been doing, because when you do EMDR tapping, which is usually crossing um, the halfway point in your body, because you're when you cross the midline, you're activating the opposite side of your brain, right? You're activating both sides of the brain. So in EMDR, it's supposed to be similar to REM sleep. So instead of doing the rapid eye movement, which you would do during therapy, when you lay in bed and you collect your dreams, you're recalling your dreams. If you just sit there and tap your shoulders, opposite shoulders one at a time, and do the EMDR tapping, it will help you to recall your dreams later.
Very cool. I've never heard of that before. What does EMDR mean?
Let me look it up.
I was gonna Google it while you were speaking, but I was like, oh, I think it
I've done a
sounds
couple
familiar.
sessions. It's really great.
I was like, electromagnetic dream recall or something. EMDR.
It is.
Eye movement desensitization, and oh,
There you go.
I forgot the R part. It like took me away from it.
That's what happened to me just now. I was like, okay,
Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Thank you, Google. Wow.
yeah. So it's a way of trauma healing, and it started with this woman who was walking through the forest, and she's just upset, and she knows when you walk through the forest, your eyes naturally shift side to side because of the trees and the way the light spectrum works. And she noticed while she was out there, she'd have like kind of random thoughts, and then all of a sudden she'd feel better.
Hmm.
So it was like it's a way of, so they've utilized that, and a lot of times the therapist will just sit there and have you look back and forth, and while you process like a trauma, and
Yeah.
it's really awesome
It goes back to
actually.
the classic when someone's being hypnotized and they're, going back and forth, watching something, putting them into some kind of trance. It's interesting.
And then there's dream journaling, which is like the best way to improve
Mhm.
dream recall, is to write it down, and then talking about your dreams, because
Yes,
if we don't talk about our dreams, I mean, that's a ritual you should just start with whoever you live with, your family,
definitely.
whatever. Just talk about your dreams every morning, like, oh my gosh, I had this dream.
Yeah, especially if you're dreaming about each other. Like my ex-girlfriend and I would always have a lot of fun being like, "Well, what did you dream about? Was I there?" And it's like, "Yeah, you were there. Guess what you were doing?" Like all this. And it's also funny too on that same note, even if you're not trying to have lucid dreams, it is really fun to just collect them and look back on them and be like, "Wow, what was I dreaming about?" And then the thing I want to ask you really quick before we go to the next slide is when someone recently texted me, they're like, "Hey, you were in my dream last night." I was like, "Oh." First reaction, I'm always very flattered. I'm like, "Well, thanks for thinking of me. That's very sweet of you." But like, what is that? What is that signal to you? What does that mean to you if you were to show up in someone's dream or vice versa, like someone that you personally know is dreaming about you? What do you think?
Um, it it's depends on the context of the dream, but
Hmm.
a lot of the time, it has to do with the wordplay of it all or what you associate that person with. So it's not necessarily, I think a lot of time when people dream about me, I'm actually probably there because
Nice. Yeah,
I do
yeah,
some heavy level stuff on the dreamscape, but
yeah.
um, I think it's every person is an extension of you, or it's your subconscious trying to signal associations. So it just it depends on the dream and
Well
the dream.
said. Well said. Cool.
Okay. So the whole idea is if you treat your dreams though as important, then they'll keep showing up and being important.
Yes.
Oh, it's gonna work. Okay.
Let's see if the audio shares on this. I
No,
don't hear it personally, but I know that
I
when
don't
we
either.
um here, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take the link to this YouTube video. I'll definitely put it in the show notes.
There we go.
This is a clip from Shark Boy and Lava Girl. It's titled "He Ruined My Dream Journal," and it's maybe you want to explain the context why you brought this in here.
It was just my introduction to dream journaling, and it's because the whole point of the movie is how important it is to dream, but also to be anchored in the real world.
Mhm.
So I like to argue with that, and I think that it's okay to blur them.
Yes, yes,
So,
for sure.
okay. So I just here I'm just giving an example, explaining dream journaling.
Mhm.
So the easiest methods, the very easiest is just to do a voice note on your phone, but it's not always the easiest to go back. So that's why I don't necessarily like the voice notes. But if you do your notes app, you can use voice dictation, and
Mhm.
that actually is my favorite method because it's searchable. So if you do notes in your phone, you can go back in the search bar. You can when did I dream about crows? When did I dream about, milk?
Mhm.
Different things you can, it'll pull up every single one and it's awesome. And then there's just the paper and pencil, putting it in a journal. Um, but if you're going to do that, or even the notes apps, the night before, write down the date at the top of the page. And in my notes, I do hashtag dream. So that way, every one
Nice.
of my notes
Yeah.
comes up as, they're distinguished by
You could
the fact that
prime the mental spiritual algorithm by getting that hashtag in there, get it
oh,
already.
and then if it's a book, leave it open right next to your bed so you can do it
Mm.
right away so you don't forget. Um, and you just and when you write it down in the morning, it's like I can never read my writing. You just kind of bullet it, just write out the most important parts. You don't have to worry about the order of it, or any of the details. You just write down the basics, and then later you can go back and fill it all in.
Definitely.
But I give an example of I have a dream journal that I did. This was one of my favorite dreams actually, because this is a healing dream.
Hmm.
It actually was kind of I'll explain the wordplay of it all here. So I'm at this pool and my daughter's lifeguard there. I'm visiting and swimming butterfly. I'm visiting the town and I'm swimming the butterfly, which I have good endurance. So you can tell I'm using my just woke up English here. So I don't do well after I dive. I dive too shallow, almost perfect, but not quite deep enough. That's kind of weird because in swimming, you usually want to do a shallow dive. You don't dive deep to
Right,
go
right.
into like swimming laps.
Hmm.
So in here, I'm saying I'm not diving deep enough. It makes the butterfly hard to start. So butterflies naturally, think about it, metamorphosis, right?
Hmm.
So this is all symbolic. A coach comes from this other town to ask if this town wants to join their swim team. I'm basically trying to impress him. um, I'm sitting in a lounge chair covered by a thick blanket. I can get up and I get up and tell the guy I can swim butterfly. He seems unimpressed. I go for a swim. I try to dive again and skim the surface again. Perfect shallow dive. But I can't swim butterfly well because I didn't start deep enough. I said it again.
Mm.
Okay. Repetition. This is why writing it down is important, because the things that you keep saying are the important part.
Yeah, you can definitely see patterns there.
Yeah. Um, I didn't dive deep enough to kick my feet and get the height I need. I realized I probably used most of my power before he got there. Keeps talking with the pool manager and various people. I walk out of the pool without touching the side in one easy, strong motion. I approach my daughter and I see a pack of Camels behind the lifeguard stands. So cigarettes.
Hmm.
I know that if I move back to this town, I'd have a hard time staying a non smoker. I don't like that feeling. I remind myself that I dislike smoking even when I do it more than I like it. So this whole dream was about smoking. At this point, I had been a non-smoker for over a year, and I didn't smoke Camels, which is the funny thing. Like that wasn't my brand, but it was telling me that I did a perfect shallow dive. I quit. But in order to make the metamorphosis into being the butterfly, I had to dive deeper.
Yes.
So I had to get to the root of why I was smoking. So that's all just from one dream. And so then I was able to go in and do the trauma healing and get to the root of why did I start smoking? Why did I continue smoking? And now I'm a non-smoker. I'm not worried about it at all.
Right on. Yeah, I can see why you call that a healing dream. That's a cool example. And just because, quick synchronicity, I had suggested that you start reading a novel by Tom Robbins, and there's another book called Still Life with Woodpecker, which goes into all the symbolism of the Camel cigarette logo with
Oh
the
wow.
pyramids and everything. And maybe we can chat about that sometime. But I just want to bring that up because it's funny that you didn't smoke Camels, right? You just said that was just like a random cigarette pack that would come up.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that it does feature the pyramids on that pack, and pyramids are definitely like butterflies, associated with some kind of transfiguration, transformation, like a process of evolution, if you will. So it's cool. I just wanted to throw that out there because,
And
well,
what's neat is that even if we're not necessarily aware of the symbology of something, because it is very subjective, but really the dream state, it we are a collective as well, whether we want to believe it or not. We are all connected. And so that collective, somewhere in there, it's known that that symbology is there. So
yeah.
that's probably it was there. That's why it was probably the pack of Camels, and I didn't even know that. So
And the other thing about camels too is like camels like store like very, very long term. So it's like I think you had said like you had, quit smoking for a year, but still like maybe there was still like something stored that was still in the process of being detoxed or released. So it's funny that camel was the one that came up. I just wanted to throw that out there. That's really cool.
well, thank you for your other insights. That's amazing. Okay. So dreaming problems and how to fix them. Was that the next one? I feel like I'm out of order here. Okay. So when people say that they're not dreaming, it's usually because they're not sleeping well.
Mm.
So um the ways to fix them, you need to get enough sleep, reduce cortisol, which is your stress hormone. You should have stress hormone. It's important, it's natural, but it's usually more towards the morning time. That's what gets you out of bed in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So red light, getting the red light in your eyes in the morning is a good thing. It will help reset your circadian rhythm, help you go to bed, help you wake up in the morning, and then limit blue light exposure. So you could use the blue light blockers. It's not necessarily the blue light blockers we use aren't good enough though.
Mm.
You need like the orange ones,
Oh
but
yeah, yeah.
but like on my computer, I have it set to nighttime mode, so it pulls up the orange screen. You can
Me
do
too.
that on your
Yeah.
devices. Um, if caffeine affects you, then you shouldn't have afternoon caffeine.
Mm.
I'm a person, I could sleep no matter what. So white noise, so a fan or something going on in the background. I use a sleep mask because I can sleep through sound, but I can't sleep through light. So um, I have to wear a sleep mask so that way if people are in and out or whatever, that I won't wake up. And then natural sleep supplements, I suggest magnesium or 5-HTP. I don't suggest melatonin. It's on here because it's an exogenous hormone.
Hmm.
It's when you do that, you stop making your own.
Yeah.
So um, it's okay to use things that boost melatonin naturally, but really 5-HTP boosts your serotonin and it still helps you sleep. And it
Yeah.
gives you really awesome dreams.
Exactly. Oh, I can personally um clarify that or validate that, and I appreciate you suggesting that I try it out. And it's also weird that 5-HTP has an effect on your serotonin in a very positive way. Like I woke up the next day feeling great and very well rested. And the other thing that, if people are concern that they don't have enough melatonin being released in the evenings, you can also look at foods that are high in melatonin. Like I know if you like having something sweet in the evening, I know that bananas are considered to be high in melatonin. And there's all certain types of foods that you can look into that will naturally boost your melatonin. But it's funny that people in the mainstream are like, you can take melatonin, but no one ever suggests taking cortisol. Like that's not like a thing that people
Yeah,
would be taking, right? So like, why would you do the opposite?
exactly. Um, and then the last thing I have on here is recapitulation, which is you got to do your trauma healing. You got to face all the crap that you don't want to face
Mm,
because that's usually keeping you from sleeping, right? It's your brain not shutting off because you can't stop thinking about it. So,
good stuff. Good stuff.
so what is recapitulation? This idea really comes from Carlos Castaneda. It's another way of saying trauma healing, but in the Toltec way, they basically, you think about every person in your life.
Mm,
You can start with your mom or your dad, and you turn your head from side to side and you go through memories of them. And you think about them, you breathe in on one side, you turn your head and you breathe out on the other side. So um, this is, well, I'll get into it. Let me go do the bullet points and then I'll get into that a little bit more. So um, it it's under the premise that emotion, it literally means energy in motion. That's what it
mm,
stands for.
mm,
And we usually bottle our emotion. It's a very American thing to do. Like, you're not supposed to feel. We're thinkers. We don't act from emotion. We don't if we're anger is a bad thing, being sad is a bad thing. You don't feel. Not feeling is a good thing. Like that was definitely my generation.
mm,
And when you do that, you are trapping this energy in your body. It's supposed to be moving, it's not supposed to be stagnant. And you are an electric being. You have a brain, and if which is connected to all this fascia, which is electrical wiring that runs throughout your entire body. And when you clog that electrical wiring with your emotions that you aren't dealing with, these waveforms, um, you are you are taking away from your um, dreaming energy,
mm,
because the whole purpose of dreaming is to find and perfect your dream body,
mm.
your double, so your energetic body. um, so you recapitulate to reclaim your energy. One method is soul fragment retrieval. The idea, and your dreams will show you this, like most of your nightmares are soul fragments,
Mm.
what I call soul fragments. They're pieces of you that you rejected at some point. So um, you could have, and they're usually nightmares. They manifest as nightmares when they're wanting to come back and to reintegrate. um, so reintegrate meaning like become a part of you again. That's the whole
Yeah.
purpose of
Like
all of it.
those terrors are popping up because they do need your attention. And just like you had mentioned, Western Americans, we want to push everything down and suppress it. But if it's coming up, you got to treat it with respect and nurture it and figure out how you can work with it and not against it.
Exactly. And so like an example, like in real life, not in dreaming, our friend Bootsy Greenwood, he uses this one a lot. Like, a place where he had fragmented was in middle school. He really loved Dave Matthews Band, and it
Mm,
wasn't cool to
yeah.
like Dave Matthews Band. So when um, he basically like broke off that part of himself, compartmentalized it, and forgot about it. And then it causes you issues later,
It
though.
does.
It's
Yeah.
something as simple as that. It's, that's a part of you that you rejected.
Mm.
And so like later he got to go to, like, just a year or so ago, he went to a Dave Matthews Band and was able to kind of reclaim that piece of himself.
Nice, nice. Yeah, it could happen in the waking physical world, definitely. And that's a great example of, something which could have like a social stigma attached to it. If all of your friends are into other types of music or, any topic like that, like it's interesting that you can reclaim that power. And that brings me to a question about, you want to be able to generate enough energy and store that energy for your dream body. And I've heard this associated with your afterlife body, like when the physical body dies, you're going to carry with you, maybe you call it your dream body, your astral body. And dreams are a way of preparing, of like exercising and making this dream body stronger, so that when it's time for us to traverse that brilliant that transition period, when we pass away, that we're strong enough and capable of navigating our dream body into wherever we're going to go after this. Have you thought about that as well?
Yeah, because Castaneda's crew, their whole thing is that you don't actually even physically have to die.
Mm,
They're all trying to just leave this reality.
mm,
And it's funny because two of his followers went missing. And and he claims that his mentors, that they, his benefactors, that they also went missing, that they went to a new reality.
mm,
And so two of his followers, though, two women, they went missing. Like they, and when I first started reading Castaneda, I thought they were dead. That
mm.
obviously, we watch enough true crime, that's what we think.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've actually seen the two women in YouTube videos doing what he calls the magical passes, which are, um, I guess, like the Toltec version of Qigong, or what, I don't know how you say that, but more or less the same thing.
Mm,
And these women were hardcore. They were not just cultish. They had their own minds, and they were very strong, powerful women.
nice.
I think that they actually like took it to the next level. They just don't exist in this reality anymore.
Yo, that's really fascinating, because when you bring up qigong or whatever practice they were engaged in, that's like a way to move and create a flow in your internal energy. And it's cool that we're doing this when we're sleeping and dreaming. The energy is flowing into it, or it's helping us, our awareness, our consciousness flow into a different reality. Even though you could consider it the same reality, we won't get too lost in semantics. But the whole idea is that like the energy work that you put in, even like exercise, can also carry over into your dreaming body, and that the two work together hand in hand, it seems.
Well, okay, so let me tell you this lucid dream I had,
Yeah.
like, after I did this presentation. It was the probably it was it was one of the coolest lucid dreams I've ever had,
Mm,
because one of the gates of dreaming is that you need to find your physical body with your dream body.
mm,
And so I was lucid, and I I mean, I don't ever like set intentions. I should set intentions right before bed, but I usually, for my lucid dreaming intentions, I just decide whenever I think about it what I'm going to do next.
mm,
And so that was what I had decided. And so I won't even think about it before I go to bed. And then all of a sudden that's what I'm doing. And I woke up in a dream. I realized I was dreaming, and I was like, oh, I need to go find my body.
mm,
So like, I couldn't see. I was blind. So I think, I obviously need some work on my dream body.
mm.
I can't see I couldn't see out of my eyes, though I've seen out of my energy body eyes. It's different vision. But I grabbed my shoulders and I shook my body, and I could feel it on both ends. I could feel both
Whoa,
parts of me. I could feel the part of me that was shaking myself, and I could feel my body that was laying in bed being shook. And it was the absolute coolest thing I've ever felt.
that's crazy. That is really cool. And that kind of makes me wonder, like, when people have a lot of like falling dreams and they really feel like they are falling, and they like snap back and they wake up, it's like, I wonder what was happening to me. Like, what oh, I have so many questions about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be that. I mean, because your energetic body it's one of the only systems that can walk outside of your body.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be, it's not anchored to your physical body. So,
Yeah. Good
okay.
stuff so far. This has been really cool so far. I have so many other questions that we're going to get into, but I appreciate you going through this in detail and
Well,
sharing
if you
these
want to
stories.
stop, we can stop this too.
No, no, I would love to keep on going. There's a lot more to get into, especially like tech reality checks. I definitely want to speak about that soon.
Okay. So anytime that you stop breathing when you're feeling emotions, like you're angry or sad or whatever, and you just stop breathing, you're storing it in your body for later. So think of how many times you've done that throughout your
Mm,
lifetime. It's insane when you start to think about it. And that's why when you have those memories that pop up, like, why did I say that to that kid in third grade? And
mm.
you're like, why is this bugging me right now? I
Yeah.
mean, this has no bearing on my life right now. Why does, why am I feeling embarrassed? It's because you trapped that energy in your body and you need to get it out.
Yes.
So you have to go back into the memory and pull that energy out of your body and unclog your system.
Mm,
Unclog your chakras, unclog your fascia, your um acupuncture meridians.
mm.
So any memory that has a jolt of feeling in it, you have to pull it out. And
Definitely.
the recapitulation is. So you sit with the feelings, breathe it out. And I highly suggest Ho'oponopono for this because that's pretty much my favorite release method now. You go back into the memory and you say four statements to the other person first. If you wronged somebody or whatever, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And you just say it over and over
Nice.
until you feel it, until the charge is gone. And then you look at the younger version of yourself and then do the same thing. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you, until it's gone. And then when you think about the same memory, there's absolutely no emotion. It's just a memory.
Mm. That's very powerful.
It is, and that's how you reclaim your energy.
Mm.
Okay, so why do I have naked figures here? Because acupuncture, this is from my friend Janet Lee. She was a body worker
Mm,
and she figured this out that um, acupuncture is your body when you're having dreams from your body, which is your subconscious as well.
mm.
It it knows the acupuncture meridians. Like I don't know them. I have to go check my chart when I wake up, but my body knows it. So there's something to the whole Chinese medicine thing, y'all.
Definitely.
So when it comes to decoding dreams, pretty much all characters are you, like some aspect of you.
Mm.
And so if I see a character that I had a dream where this man I'd never seen before had a huge, it looked like a shoebox in his throat, and I was like, oh my god,
Whoa.
yeah. Well, guess what that meant? I
Throat
didn't.
chakra work, huh?
Yeah, huge throat chakra block, a
Yeah.
big block. So that was my throat chakra block, not somebody else's.
Mm.
So your colors respond to chakras, and you'll start once you start paying attention, it'll be like orange, orange this, the soap was orange, the shirt was orange, the sign was orange. It won't just be, it just keeps repeating because
Mm.
your it's your body's signaling to you, hey, you have some sacral chakra work to do.
Mm.
So the acupressure points, though, I bought a chart. It's right there. So
Oh
when I
yeah,
wake
yeah.
up in the morning, I can go check it if I need to. It will tell you if you have emotion trapped in your body, which you could
Mm.
also energy test for that. So it could be that you're just physically ill or whatever, but a lot of the time it is stuck emotion. So is it a stuck emotion? Yes. Um, then the meridian will tell you what emotion it is.
So you
So
might have a dream scenario where you have a certain part of your body that's featured or has some kind of issue, and then you can look at that chart, the acupressure chart, the acupuncture chart, and look at where this point aligns with a certain meridian, which could align with a certain organ, or what other kind of connections can you make? That's really fascinating.
like lung would be that you have some kind of sadness or grief that you haven't
Mm,
expressed. So but the lung meridian isn't always on the lung. It runs throughout the entire body.
right.
And so if it's on that point, it's like, okay, well, let's look at the other parts of the dream that might tell us what exactly, what grief or whatever you're feeling,
Mm,
what it respond or corresponds to. And that's what it's asking, your body's asking you to heal it, to deal with it, sit with it and heal it and pull it out.
Now, I have a question for you. So I had mentioned reality checks earlier. I think this is the perfect time to bring it up. So like if you're going to try to get into a lucid dream state, you want to be able to confirm, like, am I dreaming? And if you've ever seen Inception, you know that Leonardo DiCaprio spins his little top, his little dreidel, and if it falls over, then he knows he's awake. But if it keeps on spinning, he knows that it's dreaming. That's his totem, I think, is what he calls it. But for me, I was taught a different method where you can plug your nostrils and try to breathe, because in dreams you can always breathe. And it's crazy to think about the few times that I've become lucid. It was always because I thought something was going on that was fishy. So I checked my reality. I was breathing through my nostrils, even though they're plugged. And it's crazy to think about that I was controlling my dream body, grabbing my dream nose and breathing. And it's very baffling to me, just thinking about that. It's almost like if you were hooked up to some kind of computer and you can control like a robotic arm. Like that's kind of how it had felt. And I'm sure if I continue working on it and integrating myself into my dream body, it would feel more natural. But what do you make of that, and other reality checks, especially with the breathing and the nostrils? Is there anything in particular that comes up for you?
Um, I mean, there's so many different. For me, it's just seeing my hands.
Oh yeah.
Um, and that never wakes me up. Reality
Mm.
checks, I'm so headstrong in a dream. Like, so that's half of me, your personality. Your dream person is another person. And it's half of who you are though. And it's the
Mm.
half that you aren't really consciously aware of so
Right.
much. And that half of me, like I either know I'm dreaming or I'm convinced I'm totally wide awake and it's totally plausible.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I sit there and I practice throughout the day. Am I awake or am I dreaming? And I'll like try to stick my fingers through my hands.
Yep.
I do look at my hands. I do plug my nose. I try to lift my feet off the ground
Oh, wow.
to see if I'm floating,
Hmm.
because like that's my favorite thing to do in a dream is just like pick my feet up and just float. But
Yeah, yeah.
but I I'm so when I'm in the dream, I never do any of that. It's either like, wait a second, am I dreaming? There's a dog flying and it's holding a banner in its mouth that says stop. No, this is totally
No,
real.
totally normal. Totally
Yeah.
normal.
And I won't even check. I won't even so
Hmm.
um but if you practice in reality, it's supposed to kind of just make you
Definitely. Yeah.
I think really just practicing while you're awake, am I awake or am I dreaming? And asking yourself, like, you have to ask yourself over and over again, probably 10 or
Yeah.
more times a day. And then do the reality checks while you're awake.
Hmm.
You're more likely to question, are you awake or dreaming when you're dreaming? So you might not perform the reality checks because I don't, but they say to do more than one
Oh,
because
yeah, yeah.
you might plug your nose and be able to and not be able to breathe one time. And so you think that you're awake or that you're whatever.
Yeah, you don't want
That
to get
you're awake.
tricked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you do that and try to stick your finger through your hand and try to float, you do three, one of them's gonna not be right.
Yeah, it's interesting that you brought that up. Like maybe there is for people, like I definitely want to improve my methods and get into better habits. So like maybe even with dream recall too, like maybe it's true that if you're journaling throughout the, like maybe you have like a, obviously you want to write down your dreams every single morning. But then like even just writing down your thoughts, like your stream of consciousness, maybe that'll also prime you, or like writing a journal entry before you go to sleep and just kind of like catalog what's going on. Maybe that will prime you to then recall things better. And then the other thing I want to bring up is related to this funny point that we can see crazy things and just think it's totally normal. I've seen studies, allegedly brain scans, showing that when we're dreaming and we're in REM sleep, there's a certain part of our, I think it's the neocortex, that receives less blood flow. And that is an area of our brain, allegedly, that lets us recognize when things are off or suspicious. And So that part of our brain is kind of turned off, which allows this suspension of disbelief in our dream state. So I think it's a really great point that you bring up. You can try multiple reality checks and double check, test it many different ways. Yeah.
Signs though are like words, clocks, and signs are also a
Mm,
thing because every time when you're in a dream, it might say, decoding dreams right here, but when I look away and look back at it, it might say something completely different. And so
yes.
you're
Yeah.
like, wait, that's I think it said something else earlier.
Yeah.
But the other one for me is like phones.
Yep.
So like I sit there and try to dial over and over and over again or text somebody and it doesn't come out right. But the thing is, I feel like that happens to me so much in reality that that doesn't work for
Right. Yeah.
me
Yeah.
either.
You got to have like an entire toolkit. And I'm sure you're probably familiar with the film Waking Life, and they present reality checks with a light switch. They're like, try to turn it on and off. And, electronics, clocks, things like that. They never function normally. Looking at mirrors. There's so many cool reality checks. And I never thought to like combine them. I was always just doing my nostrils, and it's worked so far, but I will definitely think about adding more throughout my waking, just habit. And there used to be this cool app. I don't have it anymore, but you could do this in many different ways. It was like every 90 minutes, it would ping you and remind you, like, are you dreaming? And so that was a cool way to train you because every 90 minutes is this REM cycle. When you're sleeping, you go through 90 minutes, enter a new REM phase. And so that's a cool way to train yourself, if you will.
That's smart. And I reality transurfing, which is where, I really started it's what taught me lucid dreaming.
Hmm.
Um he says that like you don't use an alarm on your phone because if it's not going off while you're sleeping, you won't
Hmm.
it's not going to work. He said, but if you have like a grandfather clock in your house that chimes, like every time it chimes, ask yourself if you're awake or if you're sleeping, because then when you sleep, you're going to hear it. So I don't have a grandfather clock, but I live in a town with like a north, south, and east, west train. So every
Hmm.
time a train comes through, I do that,
That's
but you could
perfect.
also do it like when a dog barks, different things that might happen while you're sleeping that you might hear or you might see in a dream. So
Nice. Well, I'm gonna pull this up too because we had kind of spoke about it briefly earlier. So like if you type in to Google lucid dream mask, there's a bunch of different products out there. But I was only like 12 years old when I first got into this because I was having repeating night terrors that I wanted to kind of tackle and face head on. So that led me into lucid dreaming. But also, you know, back in the early 2000s, I was finding out that there were these masks where people have built them to sense rapid eye movement so that you can wear them when you're sleeping, and once your eyes start moving rapidly and you're entering this dream cycle, it'll pick up on that and it'll really subtly flash lights that will be seen through your closed eyelids so that when you're dreaming, it's not going to wake you up, but it'll give you like a subtle cue to be like, hey, you're probably dreaming, like maybe now is a good time to do a reality check. And that was probably back in like 2002 2003 when I first found out about that. So when you search lucid dream mask on Google and you get like Amazon and like all these different stores, like I wonder if they've been working on this some more, because I've also seen like crazy tech where people can actually construct, maybe it's like an AI thing where they can construct someone's dream visually, and put it out onto a screen. So I'm excited,
yeah,
even though it's like borderline transhumanism kind of thing like that, but it's exciting to just for personal use, to explore that potential, although you don't really need much, but it is interesting to see what you could use as a tool.
I'm gonna be looking those up later because they
Yeah.
just wear a sleep mask anyway. So that's kind of cool.
Now, I have a question about mythology, and maybe people are familiar with like famous stories. I think was it Montezuma? He was someone who had a famous like prophetic dream that was an omen, like a premonition to this great battle, this great war. Obviously, there's like Jacob's ladder and in the Bible, and he dreams of this stairway to heaven and things like that. There's all these cool mythological examples of dreams being great sources of wisdom and some kind of divine message. Thinking of like Hermes now, but what did you think about mythology? I love that you have it on here on the decoding dreams slide. What would you want to say about mythology?
Well, our the dream place, or the space of alternatives, it is ancestral, so it's all there. And the mythology, you're better off to look, instead of looking at a dream dictionary about what does an owl mean, you're better off to look at the mythology of it,
Mm,
because that's what's shared pretty much in the dream space. Like, so, and I don't just necessarily mean other people's dreams, because again, that's subjective and time period ish or whatever. But mythology, it's it's in us. We do have collective memory. We don't like to think about it like that, because we're all, raised by normies, and we're taught to think normally, that we're individual, and you know but we're not. We are and we're not separate. There's nothing there's no closed systems. We're not a
yeah.
closed system.
You ever see Avatar: The Last Airbender?
It was my favorite. Yes.
Yeah. There's a really cool scene where he's like integrating himself with all the past avatars, and there was like an entire line of them, and he's like the center point, this nexus between all the other past versions of himself. And it also reminds me of, I know Jimi Hendrix used this artwork. It's like a Hindu goddess, I think. I can't really remember who exactly, but it's like all the different versions like spreading out, like all the different hands, and Doctor Strange does that as well. It's really
Yeah, like
fascinating to think about all that.
thousand faced god or whatever. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
remember which one it is, but I know exactly. And it's all there. And mythology is history. We don't
Yes.
like to think of it that way, but it is. It's not fake. Just because it's myth doesn't mean it's fake. It's usually rooted in truth. So,
Yeah, I heard someone say mythology is stories that never actually happened, but they're happening all the time. And that's like a very paradoxical statement, but if it's like, maybe there was not a literal X, Y, and Z, whatever mythological figure you want to talk about, but the story that they're telling, this intuitive lesson or moral that you can learn from that, or even just the phenomena that it's describing is true in some sense. And it's one of my favorite topics. I'm glad you have it on here.
well, like Beowulf, though,
Yeah.
that Beowulf, I didn't even think of it as mythology. I just thought it was a story,
Hmm.
right? But it is a mythology. And they've actually proven, like, from the story, like, they've found the locations and everything. It's more than likely a true story. It might
Yeah.
be aggrandized in the whole retelling of it, but it happened in some context. So,
Yeah, giants too. Like maybe
yeah.
long ago there were really giants, and there was a removal of that species or whatever. And people dream about it, people write stories about it, and it's just a part of our collective memory, and there's got to be something to that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's one in Lovelock, Nevada, where I grew up.
Hmm.
So it's kind of, well, it was
Like
taken
a
away, but it was one of the redheaded giants. They still have its massive sandals, and
nice.
some of the earliest duck lures. I think they are the earliest duck lures in recorded history
It's so
came from
cool.
these giants. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So decoding dreams, right and left, masculine,
Mm.
feminine. So the right side is your paternal or masculine side, um, and left would be your feminine. And you can tell if you're having reversals, because if it's feminine on the masculine, masculine on the feminine, and that's with anything. Like if you see buildings, you can think where there's two, or something's happening on the left side of your body, or somebody's left side, it's kind of a feminine thing.
Mm.
Um, and then I talk about the five soul wounds. These show up in dreams a lot, and most people aren't even aware of what they are. But the premise is that there are five basic soul wounds that everybody comes into this world with, that you kind of probably choose before you come here. And they are rejection, abandonment, humiliation, injustice, and betrayal. And you can almost tell by looking at somebody's body type which soul wounds that they have. And we all have some level of all of them, but usually you have one that's prominent. And you will see that themes in your dreams. So when I have dreams where I am very obese, and um, then I know it's a humiliation wound dream, and I'll
Mm.
have something coming up the next day, a humiliation memory that I need to recapitulate. Um, if I see a lot of snow and ice in a dream, then it's usually related to the injustice wound. And so I know the next day I'm going to have some random memory pop up, and I have to do the work.
Interesting. Hmm.
Yeah. So then, and that comes from Heal Your Wounds and Find Your True Self by Lise Brabo. So it's a really, it's a good one.
Nice. Yeah. Thank you for the recommendation. So like you're saying the five soul wounds come from her writings.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're becoming a little bit more mainstream now, but she's
Mm.
the one who kind of came up with the concept, and they definitely resonate. When you read it, you're like, wow, okay, yeah, this makes sense.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I could recall all types of humiliation dreams that I've had in the past, and yeah, it's funny to think about it now. My it wasn't like I was being tortured by this. It was like, well, this is coming up, and you can work on it. You can choose to work on it or just brush it aside. So I'm glad that I did work on it, and now it's not coming up anymore. It's like magic. It just disappears after a while.
Yeah. And I mean, like I had this dream that I saw this car drive by. It was a minivan, and the top was like cut off of it. So it was really ghetto. And there's this family in there, like, and they were all fat except for the baby, but it was a baby and just dirty looking. And then I hear the mom yell at one of the daughters, and she's like, Abbie, you need to start acting like a 40-year-old woman, because you're a 40-year-old woman. And I was like, oh crap. So in the dream I'm like, oh man, that's me.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it was a humiliation dream. I'm obese, I'm like kind of dirty, and I'm a 40-year-old woman acting like a child. So I was like, the next day I wake up, I'm like, okay, oh, total humiliation dream. What's the deal? And so then I had this random memory. I was waiting for it to pop up, because I thought it would be related to the dream, but it wasn't. It was just telling me the nature of it. And I'm washing my face. This is like hours later. And then all of a sudden I hear it, like in my head, I had like that pang of remembering a time when I had texted an ex-boyfriend's friend to figure out, what he was doing and stuff. And I was like, all of a sudden I felt like shame and humiliation again. Like, I can't believe I did that. And like, why am I thinking about this? I was like, that's the humiliation thing that was ready to come up and alchemize. So I did the Ho'oponopono, and now I can laugh about it. It doesn't have the embarrassment attached to it anymore.
Yeah,
So
that definitely seems to be a great progression. Like, first it starts as this really powerful memory that's got a lot of attachment to us and is maybe suppressing our heart, and then eventually we can laugh about it later on once we do the necessary work. So that's a perfect example of that alchemical process in action. It's really cool.
well, thank
Glad you
you.
shared
I
that.
think
Yeah,
so. It's kind of a work in progress, but I think we all are. So
yeah, well said.
okay, so I gave some examples that you can see. This is my morning handwriting, and it's never good.
My handwriting always looks like that.
It's like I spell things wrong. I don't even know, what I'm talking about. Okay. So examples, repetitive words, acupuncture meridians. You can say I'm just bulleting, jotting, and then I go back later and kind of write more. Sweeping floor, maybe. Um,
Do you remember a particular dream about, acupuncture points? Like I think you mentioned it earlier, but like was there one either recently or, like things that have popped up that have really shown you this connection between the physical body and our dream body? Like were there any that
yeah,
stand out to you?
this is where I started believing in it, because I wasn't really
Mm.
sure if I believed in the whole acupuncture meridian thing. I was like, oh, I don't know about all that. But so my friend Janine, who I brought up, she who taught me about it, I was telling her about this dream I had where I had this little dog in my that fit in my hand, but he was like a big dog. So
Mhm.
it sounds really weird, but he was um like a Saint Bernard or something, but he was miniature and I called him Bear. So he kind of looked like a bear,
You,
but he kept like chewing the fur on his side and on his rib cage. And it was like he was chewing off the fur on that spot, and it was like an open wound. And I was like, Janine, like, I telling her about my dream, and she said, acupuncture meridian. And she went and she looked, and I'm pretty sure that was anger. The gallbladder meridian is right there on your side. Um, and what was weird is that I had no physical symptoms. And then later that day, all of a sudden I started hurting right there. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, okay, now I'm hurting there. Like it was the dog in my dream, but every character is you. And the fact that it was a bear, I started realizing dogs are usually a reversal of God. So it has to do with your dogmas.
yes.
So usually when you're dreaming of dogs, it's because of your something, kind of soul fragments again, or whatever parts of you rejected, or something you just need to reintegrate, or re I don't know, conceptualize, I
Mm,
guess. So, but then it was a bear also. So it was also tied into I've found for me that the bear means um my parenting, my motherhood.
yeah, authority. Yeah.
So it was all kind of tied together. And I had to, and usually if you have an acupressure point like that in a dream and you're not sure what it means or what memory it's tied to, you could tap on it.
Mm.
You just literally keep tapping that spot and it'll get that energy moving, and it eventually will come up so it can come out. So
I guess it's worth sharing here. I was taught one acupressure point. It's like right at the center of your sternum here. It's called the Sea of Tranquility, I guess. And you tap it and you feel like King Kong like being his chest, and that's supposed to help release any stuck energy in your chest and help you reduce anxiety and feel more empowered. So it kind of makes sense that King Kong and the like the uh, gorilla monkey archetype is feeling their inner power, their inner kingly energy, and it's cool that so when you're looking at animals or parts of the body, there's so many different messages you can get. Never realized that the rib cage was associated with anger. So I definitely want to look at a
I think just on the
meridian chart.
side of your body, like along the side,
Yeah,
there's a line there.
yeah. It's interesting too. Maybe if you don't know off the top of your like, if you can't remember, it's okay. But I'd be curious to learn more. In the past 2 years, I had a pretty traumatic, well, not too traumatic, but it was injuries that really set me back a lot. It was in my neck, my shoulders, and after this, I've had surgery. I've been able to heal. And I'm curious if you're talking about energetically and the meridians and things of that nature. By the way, I don't know if you can hear someone knocking on my door. I'm
Yeah, I was
not
like,
gonna pause and answer. I'm gonna if it's important, they're gonna break in and tell me. But sorry to them. But what do you think about the neck and the shoulders? Just curious for my own selfish curiosity. What do you think?
I can go look really quick for
Yeah,
you. I guess it depends on what area of the neck and shoulders, but
on my right side too. Yeah, so my on my right side and my right shoulder, I've had so that was where my two surgeries were taking place.
okay.
Fusing a disc in my neck and then repairing the bicep tendon in my shoulder.
Well, right down the back of the spine is the governing meridian, which I
Hmm.
think is your masculinity. That's like so right right down the center of your spine, yeah, it's your governing vessel. And your governing vessel is masculinity. Um if it's on so that might be like a balancing your masculine and feminine energy thing.
Hmm.
So and I feel like most of us are a little bit out of whack there. Basically, if we come from broken families or we have, toxic people, which a lot of us do. I was definitely way more masculine of a feminine for a long time. It took me a long time to like become more into my feminine energy,
Mm.
and it's finding that balance. So, um, but also along the spine are a lot of the bladder points, which are affiliated with, if it's along the side of the neck though, so like right along the side, that is going to be your large intestine meridian.
Mm.
And so that is like grief and sadness. So let's see, large intestine, and it's also like it's the metal. So
The
metal
metal element, yeah.
elements in your dreams also kind of correspond to acupuncture meridians. So
Yeah. Interesting. I'll just quickly share before we move forward about these injuries and these this chronic pain began after lockdown started in 2020. And I was sitting around a lot. I wasn't doing a lot because I couldn't really do much. Although I did try to like go out and hike a lot, but I just felt very stagnant. And I know that passivity of just waiting and waiting was definitely an imbalance of the feminine energy. And it wasn't until later when I was able to heal and get these injuries fixed up that I felt like I was able to step back into that masculine energy and actually do things and get stronger. But yeah, it was a lot of waiting around and sitting and hoping I would feel better, but there wasn't a lot of action. So it definitely feels like it was an integration process, and I'm happy that I was able to go through because it's definitely helped me quite a lot.
absolutely,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was a rough time for a lot of us, but I think it kind of was catalyst.
Yes.
It was catalyst,
Yes.
because how many of us grew out of it, you know?
Right.
I'm not saying everybody did, because a lot of people are still in their fear mindsets, but a lot of us who needed the push, you know, we got it.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, I love that. So what else we got here? We have a couple more slides. There's about seven more, I think, or six more. Um, Ooh, here we go. Lucid
Lucid
dreaming
versus,
versus normal dreaming.
yeah, pretty much probably everybody who's going to listen to this knows the difference, but you know, lucid dreaming is when the dreamer realizes that he or she is dreaming. The dreamer can change the dream, and it's also known as conscious dreaming. So like you just wait a second, am I dreaming? I'm dreaming. Okay, what do I want to do? um I want to go to Las Vegas. That was my first lost lucid dream. I went to Vegas. I wanted a red dress and red heels. And then I wanted to go to Vegas, which is, so I hate Vegas. So it's so funny that like the dream part of me was like,
Had to
let's
get it out
go.
of your system, Abbie.
Yeah. Um, normal dreaming is when you're not aware that you're asleep, that you're not aware you're dreaming, you're following the dream script. You're in a film role. Most dreams are non-lucid, and it's also known as unconscious dreaming. Okay, so lucidity tips. So how to become lucid. First thing I said was you got to ask yourself 10 times or more a day, like, am I awake or am I dreaming?
Mm,
And don't just answer it. You need to like look around, and this
investigate.
is where the reality checks come in. You know, look around, you know, are the numbers on the clock somewhat normal? I'm not talking about like the angel numbers, because that's when we're all like, I'm in the flow. But I mean, like, you know, is it like actual numbers on a clock, or is it written with like little stars or something? Because that's not normal. Um, but at least do one check, you know, after you ask that question. But if you keep asking yourself, within a month, you'll have a lucid dream.
Definitely. And there's like other patterns too. Like if you have a lot of dreams where you're driving, then you should definitely do reality checks when you get in and out of your car. Like if you're stuck in traffic, just ask yourself really quick. Those patterns can really help a lot.
I do it with change when I find coins.
Oh yeah.
I pick up every coin I find, because I'm a reality transurfer, because you're supposed to pick up coins, because it's, if you want, you know, to keep getting abundance and stuff, you look at it and you say, my world always takes care of me. And it doesn't matter if
Nice.
it's dirty or covered in gum or whatever, you pick it up because it's a
Mm,
gift from your world. And if you reject it, you're saying you don't need it, right? So but I come into coins all the time, like in my pocket, on the ground, whatever, you know, and when I'm doing laundry. So I just, that's a reality check for me as well.
nice.
Um, the headboard facing north. we already kind of went over
I have
that.
a question about stability. I've heard, and like I had first mentioned, I was like 12 years old when I wandered onto these obscure lucid dreaming forums and started to learn about this. There was this old website called ld4all.com, and I was a member there. And I was chatting with all these strangers about dreams and such, and they would teach stability methods where, like, if you want to not wake up, because that would happen to me a lot, and maybe people who are new to lucid dreaming would have this too. Like, you would become lucid, you realize that you're dreaming and you can do whatever you want, and then you're so excited that you wake up instantly. And so I was taught, you could spin around, or what I preferred was to rub my hands together to create some kind of friction and stability and almost like ground myself in the dream body. Have you ever experimented with that?
I've not done the spinning around thing. Does I tried it once. It
I
doesn't
feel like it makes it
work
worse.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I even tried meditating while I was lucid, and that was horrible. Like I'm not a lucid dreamer meditator. It doesn't work
Interesting.
for me.
Yeah.
But the hands, it was so frustrating the first couple times when you're lucid and you're like, and then immediately you lose it. But it's because
Mhm.
you're like emotionally unstable. It's
Yes.
if you upset that balance enough, you're just going to wake up. So all I Carlos Castaneda suggests that when you become lucid, always you look for your hands.
Mm.
But then he says that to pass through that first gate of dreaming, you have to look at an object and then look away, and then look at another object and then look away, and then look back at the first object, see if it stayed the same. So you're trying to like, and I did this in a dream. I I had a bird that landed, a seagull. So I feel like the seagull was like a guide. It landed in this tree in front of me, and I was looking out a lake, and then I saw like this guy in green, and he was like jet skiing. So I was like, guy in green jet skiing. And then I look at the bird. So the bird was like my anchor item.
Mm.
And then I looked back out and I saw, I don't even remember what it looked like, an inner tube or something. I was like, so like a pink tube. And I was a pink tube donut thing, the bird. And I looked back, and the first guy, like in the green, was no longer jet skiing. He had changed. So I was like, I
Mm.
knew I failed, but I mean, I was doing it. I was actually, practicing this, but it's kind of like not focusing your attention too deep on one thing. And that's really um, a big part of it. But what I do now to stabilize a lucid dream, and I can stay in it a long time if I do this, and other people make fun of it, but it's what works for me. I throw my hands up in front of my face and I walk around my dream like this the whole time,
Nice. Okay.
because my dreams are my anchor. So, or my hands are. So I go,
Mm.
it just keeps me lucid because I could talk or whatever and do whatever I want to do. And I just look back down at my hands after I feel like I'm losing it.
Yeah, it almost sounds like as long as you can see your palms or your hands, it's like you're being reminded of like where you are, who you are, what's happening. It's like a good way to keep yourself grounded. And I'm curious, we I mentioned this earlier, we didn't really get a chance to dig into it, but I did hear you tell the story that you spent a couple consecutive nights building a school in your dreams. I was wondering if you wanted to share that story because that's fascinating to me.
Yeah. I didn't do that intentionally, not consciously intentionally. I did it, dream intentionally. And it just started with like the inside of a schoolhouse. And I didn't really realize what was happening until I started working on the outside, because I was erecting a fence. And I realized then at this point that I wasn't doing it physically, that I was actually doing it in my head,
Mm.
and that whatever I was thinking was happening. So I'm like putting up a fence around the schoolyard, around the and I put up huge obsidian boulders all around it. So I was actually adding crystals and stuff, as a part of the protection around the school. But
Nice.
yeah, I I almost need to go back and reread my dreams to remember exactly what I did, but I know that it felt really profound because it was a series of dreams. It was over 3 nights.
Mm.
And I kept going back and adding to this area.
So that's
So
pretty cool that you can have like an ongoing project. Like I know I'll talk about this film again, Inception, how they can return to this place and build it up and create like another home basically. And that this is great, and it's even cooler that you can share this with someone else. And maybe in a few minutes we can get into shared dreaming, because I've only had one experience with that, but it's something that is fascinating to consider it being a possibility. I mean, I think it's definitely real, but the fact that this space that we can share in the dream world can be a reality for more than one person at a time. And just like you had said earlier, when people show up in your dreams, or if you're a dream character for someone else's dream, it's like that could really be part of you traveling to go and see them. That's always fun to think about. Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we affect other people's timelines.
Yeah.
I don't believe that dreaming is we're doing work there, whether you're conscious of
Mhm.
it or not. So you're doing things to affect everything.
Yeah.
So I think we affect our own timelines.
For sure. For
I think
sure.
we go back into the past and we might be the adult that was a catalyst or whatever a lot of the time.
Yeah. 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 Very interesting. Ah. So what do we got next here?
So I go into pay attention to the setting.
Mhm.
It's actually a lot of times more important than the content of a dream. So
Mhm.
regular dreams, if you can draw the setting and you start putting it on a map, so you can buy a map and just put
Yeah.
it on the back of a map or a big sheet of butcher paper or whatever,
Mhm.
and start drawing your dream settings. They say that you kind of frequent the same places
Yep.
because all these places exist, but you tend to stick in your little area of the dream space. So if you but I'm finding that I'm all over the place,
Mhm.
but I'm able to connect things on my map now. So you draw them, they might not connect, but eventually you start to figure out where they're all connected. And it's almost like what I figured out from me personally is I'm putting areas in the dream space on the map of my hometown that I grew up
Mm.
in.
Okay.
I'm able to like figure out where things are, you know, maybe in this side of reality on my dream map inside my hometown.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of dreams from my childhood homes, and I moved to Texas back in July. And as far as I can tell, I haven't had any dreams that take place here yet. But I feel like that will eventually come about as I like integrate myself into this new space. But yeah, for me, like I could definitely remember driving, school, childhood homes, and well, areas in the forest. Maybe this is a good segue to tell you the shared dreaming experience because it's only happened once. It was when I was pretty young, but my friend and I would ride our bicycles down to this state forest, and we go and walk around. Really beautiful pine forest. And the night before, we had a sleepover, and I had this crazy, crazy dream in the same forest, and there was like a shadowy figure sort of chasing my friend and I, but like it transformed into more of like a calm energy because we realized that this shadowy figure wasn't trying to harm us. It was just like something lurking in the forest. So I was like, oh yeah, by the way, I had this weird dream last night about the same forest. And he's like, really? Like, so did I. And we started talking about it, and like I was very skeptical. I was like, no way. Like he's just bullshitting me right now. And then like we ended up confirming that we were there together. And I was able to ask him questions that he would have never known if he was just making it up. And that blew my mind. It's never happened again, but it's just crazy to think about that. And I know in the Telegram groups that we're a part of, there have been plans made, like let's all fly and meet at the Washington Monument, right? That was like a recent projected plan. So like do you want to maybe share your insight into how this all happens, and maybe things that people can work on together to meet up in the astral realm?
Well, the idea for it for me came from this Russian dream group. They call themselves the Dream Hackers. They wrote a book. They wrote two fiction books,
Hmm.
and but they say they're written as fiction. However, try everything.
Hmm.
We suggest you try it all because it's based on a real group. These are real people. That they were just fictionalized. So they they took the work of Carlos Castaneda, and who was pretty much the modern pioneer of lucid dreaming, and they made it better. Like they took all the dream magic from antiquity, and they made it into a science, and they were able to do meetups. They were actually able to make portals in reality and move from one place to another.
Nice.
And I lost my train of thought.
Well, when you talk about portals, I'm also reminded of what you said about Shasta and how it could be like considered a stargate. Does that kind of relate to the shared dreaming portal that you had mentioned earlier?
Well, we decided, so I, yeah, okay. So I had a group of friends. Janine was one of them, that we would dream share all the time. We called each other sisters. And we decided we would try to do a dream meetup. And we decided, well, let's choose a place maybe.
Mm.
And Mount Shasta just seemed to be it, because it's it's big on the grid work scene for people who are into the whole ascension
And ley
stuff.
lines too, right?
Yeah, the ley lines. It's but they allegedly it's the opening of the Antares gate, which is where a lot of souls come into this reality.
Mm.
So we decided we'd do it there because it's kind of powerful. So what we did is we took a picture of Shasta. We found one that we could all agree upon. And then I suggested, let's all choose an item that we would put there as our meeting space at Shasta. So I was thinking, well, I'm a Scorpio, so I'll do a fountain. Like I'm thinking water sign, so I gotta have, like a little bird bath or something.
Mm.
And somebody else said a phone book or a phone booth, because it was like shelter. And another person said a walking stick. The other two hadn't decided their items. So we kind of superimposed these items over a picture of Shasta, and set the intention every night to go there. Well, um, shortly after, I'm lucid, and I am looking at my hands, keeping myself stable. And I was like, okay, I want to go to Mount Shasta. I want to go to Mount Shasta. And I have to close my eyes. A lot of people lose their lucidity if they close their eyes, but for me, that's the best way for me to direct my intention.
Mm.
So I close my eyes, and I want to go to Shasta. So I go to Mount Shasta. All of a sudden, I'm like flying in, and it's dark and it's cold and there's snow everywhere. And I was like, oh crap, how am I going to find the spot?
Mm.
So I have my back to Mount Shasta, and I'm looking out and I'm looking for a spot. And I see one light, but I knew it wasn't the right spot. So I turn back around and I'm facing Shasta, and I'm actually in the spot, but I hadn't really noticed it. And I'm standing in these concentric circles. So there's probably like 3 or 4 or 5 circles, and they're like made out of white and gray stone and blue stones. So it's just this pattern on the ground.
Mm.
And um and I'm going, okay, this is the spot. This is our spot. And I'm like, but my fountain's not here. And I'm looking and I don't see the phone booth, but I see a phone, like an old fashioned like phone booth phone, like a box phone. It's sitting in a bush. I was like, okay, it's here. It's just not all the way. I don't think the intention was quite strong enough. So it's
Mm.
not all the way here. So I I was worried that they would show up though, and it would be cold and that they would be afraid. So I go over to this bush, like which is like a big old like zebra grass, and I just say, "Burn! You're gonna burn. You're gonna." My gift to everyone, that the item that I'm bringing is fire. So
Mm.
this is gonna burn. This is gonna stay contained in this one spot, and it's gonna keep everybody warm and provide light. And then later, actually, so that was the end of it. Okay, so that was the experience. I set up the place. I made it at Mount Shasta for my sisters. But I'm I'm pretty much the only one who lucid dreams semi regularly. So I was the only one who made it there. But I created the space, and later I told a fellow lucid dreamer, and I was explaining the concentric circles, and she goes, do you think that was your fountain? And I was like, what? She goes,
Mm.
think about it. When you look at it from an aerial view, what would it look like? It would look like a bunch, if it was a fountain, it would look
Yeah,
like,
yeah, they're like stacked up. Yeah.
yeah, but it was just flat. And so my fountain was there. So anyway, I created that space. But even more than that, the meetups, that's been something my daughter and I have been working on. She's a huge lucid dreamer as well. I taught her as a method for dealing with her nightmares,
Mm.
until I taught her reintegrating in the dream space. But um, we decided we were going to try to meet up. So she did it first. If I tell her to do something, she usually does it within a night or two. So she said, I told the dream I wanted to see you, like that I wanted to go meet my mom in the dream space. And it, she said this female voice came up and it said, um, we're sorry, she's not available right now.
Try calling back
And
later.
yeah, and so instead it took her to meet a mermaid. So
Oh, wow.
but when she woke up, she told me about it, and I was like, well, she's like, I was just dreaming and I was trying to see you. I was like, well, I've been out here awake. And she's like, well, that's probably why I couldn't see you.
That explains it. Yeah, you were disconnected, I guess. Yeah.
And then I've done it with her. um I actually, I woke up in a dream. Like, nightmares are my favorite trigger
Mm,
because usually those are a trigger for me. If it's a
mm,
nightmare, I usually start to realize I'm dreaming.
yeah.
And I'm in this nightmare and I'm seeing like teeth on the ground and I feel like there's a serial killer, and then all of a sudden I'm awake and I see her in front of me and she's having a nightmare. I could tell she's having a nightmare and I see her eyes moving like rapid eye
Mm,
movement, and I'm like, wake up, you're dreaming. And she's just like, she, I could see that she was lost in the storyline. It was her though. And then finally I got her to realize she was dreaming. She like kind of looked at me and she had a moment of clarity. She was like, I'm dreaming. And I was like, yeah. And then so I talked to her the next day and she's like, I don't remember that, but I remember I was having a nightmare. I was like, I knew you were. I
yeah.
said I knew.
You just
Uh,
reminded me of this like very, very rare experience. Like, if if a dream character were to approach you and be like, "Hey, you're dreaming," like that's very, very lucky, I would say. Like they're usually
yeah,
not so kind like that. But that did happen to me one time and one time only. Like some woman walked up to me and just looked at me and was like, "Hey, by the way, this is all a dream right now." I was like, "Wow, thank you, thank you. You just made my life a lot easier." Yeah,
was that
yeah.
because dream characters, Fadim Zealand says, and I know this for a fact because I've done some of his dream experiments, that the dream characters are subject to the script.
Mm,
It's a film role. So they have basically like Westworld, 5 variations of things that
yes.
they can do. So if you break character, that's why they kind of like when you wake up in a dream, you're like, hey, do you realize I'm dreaming right now? They kind
Mm,
of look at you and they get all wide-eyed and they're like waiting for what you're gonna do. So they know what loop to play, right?
right.
So um Vadim says, start asking your dream characters, not do you know that I'm dreaming right now, or do you know that you're dreaming? Ask them who they are. Do you know
Yeah.
who you are? And if they can't say I'm me, then the so the first time I did that, I was having a nightmare about a student, like the nightmare student that I was like, I
Yep.
was dreaming that
Oh,
they
I've
got
been
picked
there.
and I was gonna have them the next year, and it was like the
Yeah.
worst dream. And and then all of a sudden I wake up in the dream, I'm like, oh, I'm dreaming, and I look at him and I go, who are you? Do you know who you are? And he looked at me, his eyes got all wide, and then they got even wider. And then his face like crinkled like a
Whoa.
tin can, and he passed out and he died. Like I killed this dream character.
Oh
It was
my God.
so
Wow.
they can't go off script too far without,
Hmm.
like, if you ask them who they are. So a real person can tell you, I'm myself. I am me. A
This
dream.
this script idea just reminds me of the Matrix so much. It's like I feel like in the books that you had brought up earlier, like dream hacking or dream hackers, like that's what it really feels like. We have like our baseline normie reality, and then when you become lucid, you're hacking into it. You're able to like go in there and mess with the code and learn things that are not available just on like the normal file explorer that you've got on your computer. It's really cool to think about that. And you've had wow, there's
Well, it
I knew we
gets
were
even
gonna dive into a lot here.
crazier. It
Yeah.
gets even crazier because
Yeah.
they teach you this method called the Patience of the Medici. So
Mm,
it's in the first Dream Searcher's book, and it takes a lot to learn how to do it. It took this whole, we did a book club
mm,
in our Telegram group. We call it the Dream Coven Experiment, and we um we did this whole book club over it, and it took several of us to figure out how to fold these cards to do the Patience of the Medici. Well, I folded them, I got it to work, and I did a chain, and it's literally an algorithm. So when
mm.
you do the chain, you can manifest anything, and it's guaranteed to work. except for like after you basically break reality for a little bit. So Chatelier's principle like kind of factors in. You have to keep push it. It will shut you out for a little while, just
Mm,
like it doesn't, because you've messed with it so bad that it's like it doesn't, it has to reform around you.
mm,
Reality has to restructure itself. So you have to just keep pushing at it, and then it'll work every time. And so I've been experimenting with this Patience of the Medici that I learned from the dream searchers, and it's it's a code, it's an algorithm, and when it works, the impossible becomes, when you do something impossible, it completely changes your whole pair. It's such a I mean, this isn't real.
that
That's
sounds
all I gotta
awesome.
say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
If I could enter a code and it works every time, a cheat code, what does it say about reality?
I think you've tapped into something essential there for sure. Yeah. Wow. Well, I have a question about something on this slide here. It says wake back to sleep, and I've had personal experience with this. I've told this story a couple times where, you've grown up somewhere with snow before. You'd have snow days, so you would wake up, realize there's no school, and then you go back to bed because it's like, well, thank God I don't have to go to school today. And when you go back to sleep, you can go directly into a REM state, depending on the timing and the cycle of your REM cycle and all that. So that's when I would have a very vivid, sometimes lucid dreams, going back to sleep after waking up. And I thought about trying this with an alarm or setting the intention, like I'm gonna wake up at 2 a.m. and then I'm gonna go back to sleep and have a lucid dream. And I'm curious, like, do you still use this method? Is this something that you enjoy using, or do you have other methods that you would prefer?
It's it's probably the best method, because
Mm-hmm.
otherwise you're just waiting for external factors to get you lucid.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't use it a lot, but yeah, I set an alarm, but they say to do it after 5 to 6 hours,
Yeah.
because that's when you're going to hit your longest REM cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And you can, prolong your, can you hear the blow dryer right now? It's so annoying.
No, no.
Okay, good, because I'm getting mad.
No, you sound perfect.
Okay. But wake back to sleep, well, they call it wake induced lucid dreaming or wild, but
Wild.
I
Yeah.
just call it wake back to sleep, because you wake up, spend about 20 minutes conscious, and then you go back to sleep. And yeah, it's almost like you go into REM sleep, but you're not quite sleeping deep enough
Mm,
to be unconsciously dreaming. And so they say it's actually the best method
mhm.
to become lucid.
It's kind of like a form of meditation too, because you're focusing on your breath or whatever. And I feel like, visually, when I'm doing wake back to sleep, the imagery behind my closed eyelids is a little more vivid than like if you just lay down and go to sleep now. Like, it takes a while for it to kick in. And it feels
Yeah.
like when I'm focusing, I'm like moving down this tunnel. And it's like, all right, we're approaching the dream. It's getting closer and closer. And then all of a sudden there you are and you're in your dream body. And it's wild how it's like you're going through this like birth canal kind of thing.
And that's what I call that the liminal state, because
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's the in between state, and it's you're dreaming before you're dreaming, and
Yeah.
that's exactly it. So if you pay attention in that liminal state where you close your eyes and all of a sudden you're like, wait, okay, I can hear the sounds of my house, I can
Mm-hmm.
hear, I can hear the fan, I know that I'm laying down, I know where my body is, but all of a sudden, like, I see just random things,
Mm-hmm.
they make no sense. Like the other night I had this Native American woman right up in my face, and I was like,
Oh.
what the hell? And other days it'll be like I've literally laid there and seen like pink hippopotamus,
Mm-hmm.
like on a, like with a white picket fence, and it's just like just weird little things like that. And if you don't get emotional and you just keep observing it, and actually I just learned this cool new method when you're in that liminal state, if you, they say either count backwards by threes from like 300, or sing a song that you know every word by heart
Mm-hmm.
while you're in the liminal state watching all that stuff, all the liminal imagery, just sit there and like for me, I started doing the Prince 7 songs. So all
Nice.
seven and we'll watch them fall. So like I sit there and I sing that over and over again. As you're watching the liminal imagery, then you can like tunnel vision right
Yeah,
into
that keeps you
here.
anchored, right? It keeps you
Yeah.
grounded and centered. Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's really cool. I'm definitely gonna try that. I would probably use some Red Hot Chili Peppers song, and I'm just gonna try that next time. Although I don't like the idea of setting an alarm and waking up, but I will think about it, especially on weekends when I could like wake up and then go back to bed, for sure. But
Well,
yeah,
you could even do it when you go to bed at night, though,
yeah,
because
yeah,
go into the liminal state. If you're doing it like consciously and you're paying attention,
mm,
um, then you just right when you close your eyes, start singing the song,
yeah,
and then you'll all of a sudden have the liminal images as you're doing it. They'll show up.
definitely.
They'll meet you there, so
Yeah,
you can do it right
it's
then.
yeah, it's definitely possible. It takes a little more patience when you first go to sleep, but I think it's definitely worth it, and it's pretty psychedelic.
Okay,
It's
but
pretty
what's
cool. Yeah,
also trippy is that you brought up that spot right here, right? On your xiphoid
yeah, the
process.
Sea of Tranquility.
Yeah. Okay. So in men, they say the dream searchers say that, well, it doesn't tell you in men, but actually, I've read enough Carlos Castaneda now to know
Mhm.
that men start the lucid dreaming from that spot.
Oh wow.
So if you were to take like a stone or a necklace or, like a crystal or whatever, and you put it right there while you fall asleep, so that way you're kind of thinking about that while you're in the liminal state, you can go straight into lucid dreaming too. So women, though, because the dream searches doesn't tell you that part, like, so
Mm.
I just thought, okay, so get a necklace that hits right there, and I carve some runes in the back and all of that, like that would maybe help with lucid dreaming, but that's not the spot for women. For women, it comes from your womb.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I figured that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any insight into like being a back sleeper or a side sleeper? Because I usually sleep on my left side, and I've always wondered, and I've heard people claim that sleeping on your back keeps you more centered. It makes it easier to travel into the liminal space. I was curious if you had any thoughts on that.
I'm more of a side sleeper too,
Mhm.
but I have heard that if you like put pillows around yourself and kind of do like the mummy thing, it well, I did that the other night because I never can sleep on my back,
Mm.
but it really worked. And actually, it was some of the best sleep I've had for a long time.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
feel like after doing wrestling back in high school, like I cannot relax on my back. Like I associate being on my back with like
Yeah, it's
something
a
like,
bad thing.
like I gotta get out. Yeah. So yeah, I'm definitely a side sleeper. It's good to
Well,
hear someone else in that same boat too.
and
But
then dream
yeah.
yoga though teaches you like if you sleep on one side that it's like karmas, and if you sleep on the other side, I don't remember what, but
Hmm.
like I think it can be. I think it's what you decide it is. So
Yeah. Well, I've even heard, and I think it's true, if you're having a digestive, distressful kind of feeling, then laying on your left side helps your esophagus and all that. It's like helps ease anything that might be going on indigestively. But it's just more comfortable. I think everyone just kind of gets comfortable with that. My father was a back sleeper, and he always thought it was funny that I was like questioning that, like, how do you fall asleep on your back? And he's like, how do you not fall asleep on your back? Like, it's funny. Yeah. So, what do you got on the next slide? I'm curious to see what else we haven't touched on already. Ooh,
oh,
ooh.
experiments. Okay. Find your hands. That's the first one.
Mhm.
Everybody should try to do that because, like I said, that's a good way to reduce the importance and keep yourself anchored and to help you remember the whole. Because the dream's objective is to put you back to sleep,
Mm.
just like reality. So, actually, on one of my last slides, I said find your center point, and
Yes.
I didn't expand on that. And your center point is coming to the awareness that I see myself, so I can see my thoughts, because we're either on one screen or the other. We have two screens. We have our thoughts and we have everything that's happening around us.
Mm.
So we're either paying attention to what's happening around us or we're paying attention to our thoughts, but never both. So it's really hard to keep your focus in the center. But when you do, it's amazing how many things you could pay attention to at once and still like be cognitive. And so I can pay attention to my thoughts and I can pay attention to reality. So I see myself, I see reality. And when you do that more and more in your regular life, it transfers over to dreaming. So
Nice.
you're still doing the same thing. So your hands being up there is kind of like, I see myself and I see
Mhm.
reality. Um,
Seems like a
looking,
great way to stay focused for sure.
yeah, look in a mirror. Looking in a mirror is never a way for me, not a, it wasn't a way for me to decide if I was dreaming or not.
Mm.
It's just something I did because Vadim Zealand in Tufty the Priestess, one of his later transurfing books, tells you to look in a mirror. So I read about it the next day. I dreamt that I dreamt that I became lucid and I looked in a mirror and
Mm.
my face like did 5 transformations
Whoa.
and it ended up with my eyes on the side of my head and I kind of looked like a fish and it was weird. So I told my daughter to do it and she dreamt that she was like this South American woman and she said she had like bangs cut across her forehead and she was like she had a fat body and so she was like looking in the mirror and it was tripping her out so she lifts up her shirt and she said she didn't have a bra on and she had like banana boobs.
Nice.
So, and then I've also like looked in the mirror and I realized I was in somebody else's film role because I have a dream baby that's with me in a lot of my dreams
Mm.
and I'm carrying my dream baby and there's a mirror and I'm looking in the mirror and all of a sudden I'm like a 1940s dress with like polka dots and stuff
Whoa.
and I have short curly black hair and I look at my dream baby and I was like, oh my gosh, look at you in the mirror and like it went from being like my normal baby to like this little redheaded girl in a like big old frilly dress and
Interesting.
yeah, so
Hmm.
mirrors are never what you quite expect. It's very rare that you find yourself.
Definitely. Yeah.
Learn the different models of flying. You can fly like Superman, you can flap like a bird, you can become a bird, hover, the long run and jump. There's probably even more ways to fly, but
Oh
those
yeah.
are the that I've done. Change the dream. You can either do that with intention or dream portals. I had guides in a dream show me that like I could pick up what they called an artifact. And if I use the artifact, it was a button in the stream, like on a shirt.
Nice.
And if I use the artifact and I just intended to be on like it was a train. So
Hmm.
it's like, you're gonna use the artifact, you're gonna like press it in your hand and then say I want to be on the train. And then I was on the train.
Nice.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I had learned of people who would vocalize things like that. To be like, "Take me to the beach," or "Take me to this place or that place," or "Summon me this," and they were like using their vocal intentions to like cast spells. Basically, it's pretty cool.
And that's how you learn how to do it in
Mhm.
reality by doing
Yeah.
it here,
Hashtag
walking through
manifesting.
walking through walls. Have you ever walked through a wall?
I have not walked through a wall, but I have floated in my living room and I've dove into a TV. So maybe that's
Ooh.
kind of like a wall, but like there was someone was playing like Grand Theft Auto, I think, and it was on the TV screen and I like dove into it and it brought me to my old childhood like neighborhood. And I was walking around like a video game character.
Oh, how
Yeah,
weird.
yeah, it was crazy.
How gosh, I can't think of the name of the book. The one you probably I bet you've read it. Ready Player One.
Oh,
What's
that's a great film. I haven't read the original book though. Yeah.
that's so much better,
Yeah.
obviously.
I bet. Yeah.
The walls
Nice.
have substance. Like my one of my first lucid experiments with the walls was just trying to put my hand through the wall. And
Mhm.
I was like, I'm putting my hand through the wall and I hit the wall really hard. And I was like, oh crap. And it made the knocking noise and everything. But you can actually like I had to close my eyes and like, okay, I'm putting my hand through the wall. And then all of a sudden I could do it. And the same thing with walking through wall. When I finally did that, it was weird. It was like it reminded me of pie for whatever reason, like a lemon meringue pie. And I felt like it, kind of has a little bit of a layer on
It's like a
top. And
jelly kind
yeah, and
of,
it was like
yeah.
jelly, it was all gelatiny when I went through the wall. I was like, oh, weird.
Wow.
So yeah, you can confront your nightmares.
Hmm.
And this is what, I asked my or taught my daughter after I taught her to lucid dream to change the dream because she
Yeah.
kept having the nightmares. I taught her to confront her nightmares. So you can actually ask your nightmare, what are you trying to teach me?
Hmm. Hmm.
And but they're still subject to the script. So they kind of look at you like,
Right.
you know, so you'll switch it up. But what we found is that you can actually those are soul fragments, pieces of you that need to reintegrate. So you could say, are you ready to come back?
Mm. Invite
And
them
when
back in. Yeah.
they are, they kind of like look at you. So I told my daughter to try it. Like, cool story. She's like, oh mom, I had a nightmare. Like, you told me to try it, and then it happened. She's like, I was like, there was a tornado coming, and I was inside a Mexican restaurant, and this guy was chasing me, and we went outside for whatever reason, and he kept following me, and I like, she's like, then I turned around and I was like, hey,
Mm.
I'm dreaming. She's like, are you ready to come back? And I looked at her and she's like, come on. And so she hugged him, and it melted into her. And she had this weird memory of her dad. And she's like, that's why I'm pretty sure it was a Mexican restaurant, because,
Mm.
her father's Mexican. And it was
Mm.
kind of like this whole, some memory affiliated with him. So,
Yeah, yeah, we always have the ability. It's like it goes back to alchemy again, and it's funny that it begins with confrontation, like especially if you're being chased, flip that script around, right? Turn around, confront the thing or the person chasing you, and be like, "What are you doing here? What do you have to teach me? What do you need to be?" Like it's cool that you can kind of take back control, and that's how I got into this as well. I was always being chased by this big green like T-Rex kind of reptile thing on the school playground. And I was never like bullied or anything. Like I was friendly with everybody and like I didn't have any like issues, but on the playground there was always this like massive dinosaur that would come around and like cause havoc. And I was never able to like confront it, but I'm thinking like that's how I originally got into this, was because I was seeing this repetitive image that needed to be integrated. And I wonder if I still needed to go back and work on that. I mean, I'm sure we could all be continually working on these night terrors, but yeah, I'm
you
glad
can
you
do a
brought that up.
shamanic reentry. Like, you can actually re-enter a dream while from the waking state. And I've helped a couple of people, including
Mm,
myself. I've done this on myself. You can actually re-enter a dream while you're awake, and you can go back in and find your soul fragments and reintegrate.
nice. Yeah, I gotta try that sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, it's pretty powerful. Like, I did it because if you keep going back to the same place, like, I had a couple years where the only place I dreamt of was my childhood home.
Mm,
And I thought, well, maybe because I was born there or my parents died in that house or whatever, like, I thought all these different reasons. And I read Dreaming Your Soul Back Home by, I think it's Robert Moss. And he says that no, that's a real big sign of a soul fragment being
mm,
there that's ready to reintegrate. So I did a shamanic reentry, and I thought I do trauma healing. And usually when you're trying to heal traumas, you need to find the root trauma, which is like back in early childhood where you don't have any conscious memory of it. And it wasn't anything like that. I thought it was going to be something with my parents. And it was, I went room to room through the house on this reentry, and it was like me using drugs in the bathroom. And it was like a part of myself that, like, I obviously don't do that anymore. I actually had to go in and, do a little self-forgiveness there, and
right.
pull that piece back into myself. So,
Yeah, that's always interesting to see like what memories we might be hanging on to or things that we have to forgive ourselves for. And you've the central theme here, which is really cool. It's like, I mean, some of these experiments like flying or having like awesome dream sex, it's like it's great, but there's also like so much you could be learning or healing from this dream space. There's a lot of work you could do and play for sure. But yeah, it's cool to think about both sides. Like you can really transform yourself by going into this with that shamanic lens. Like, what are you gonna? It's like psychic surgery almost.
it is, though, because repressed stuff, it manifests in disease.
Definitely.
So you're healing your body, both bodies, your physical body, though, for sure. Your brain, your mental state, even, obviously. I mean, that's the best part, is healing that,
Absolutely.
but it manifests in disease. That's why, these acupuncture meridians are accurate, because you store that stuff, it causes disease. um
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Well, let's wrap up in a few minutes. I
yes,
feel
long.
like we definitely could go for hours on this, and I think it's really it feels amazing to meet other dreamers, even though like maybe I don't always identify myself as a dreamer because my recall isn't great, and I haven't been lucid in a while, but still like I feel like sometimes if I'm considering like a spirit guide, it's like there are certain dreams that I will remember and that I remember them for a reason, even if I'm not intending to or not. And there's like this kind of meme that floats around. It's like if you have a dream and you remember it, it wasn't a dream, it was a message. And I really do believe that. And I had one recently about a crossroads and ominous things in the sky and this monstrous sound coming by. And um it's cool to think back and realize that those memories that we got stored and that are consciously available to us always have something to offer us. And it takes time and practice to kind of decode them and figure out how they're going to fit into your waking state. But it's pretty cool that you've shared a lot of experiences that definitely point to the fact of this code within reality that we can hack into through dreams. And I definitely want to learn more. And I'm curious. You brought up reality transurfing quite a lot. It's actually something I've never heard of before. Can you kind of explain how you got into that and maybe like where people could find more information on
Yeah.
that?
Um, it's a it was actually 5 books. It's all in
Oh
one now.
wow.
It was written by Vadim Zeland. He is a Russian quantum physicist,
Hmm.
brilliant man. He um he wrote, well, I got into it because I was searching. I was unhappy. And it's funny because that's how the book starts. Like, this shit's my life. I'm waking up, I hear the neighbor's dog barking. I'm smoking a cigarette. Can't believe I smoke. When did I become a smoker? It used to be freaking just fashionable, and now it's just what I do. And it's like he's just railing on, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. When did everything lose its color? When did everything become so gray? And I found it when I was going through that in my personal life, and so I was looking for meditation, and then this like YouTube person who was doing meditations kept talking about reality transurfing. So I couldn't find the book. Like each individual book was like over $200. So I actually found Owen Hunt, Bootsy Greenwood. He had made audio versions and put them on YouTube.
Nice.
So
Oh,
yeah,
cool. I gotta
so
check those
I
out.
listening. He's the original voice of reality transurfing, though it's been shut down.
Ah, I see.
But
Yes.
it's it's a pair. I guess you could almost say it's like law of attraction, but it's also hermetics. It's all of it. It's just under one blanket, and and law of attraction is missing some fundamental pieces, which kind of I guess would be natural law.
Hmm.
And it just teaches you how to apply all this stuff to your regular life. And they're definitely inspired by Carlos Castaneda, which is why I went down the Castaneda rabbit hole. So it's magic, and it's how reality works. It tells you everything about how reality works. And when I started applying it, it just religion fell away. Like I politics no longer has a hold over me. These are all just pendulums that are designed to take your energy, and it's just power. It's my paradigm now. So
You've trained your inner dogma, you could say.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is a an intention that you want to set, a message you want to leave with the audience, and any I'll definitely throw some links in the show notes to where people can contact you if they want to learn more about dreams. And I don't know if I ever asked you, like, do you offer like coaching to people? Like, what kinds of stuff should we share with our audience who may not know you?
I intended to at one point, and then I do dream interpretation. If you ask, I don't like to give it unsolicited, even if you share a dream, because
Mhm.
I've been told not to give unsolicited dream interpretations.
Fair enough.
um, but I do Reiki and trauma healing. So, but it's all to me, it's all related. So, um,
Definitely.
but yeah, that's pretty much it. Getting ready with Blue Collar Mystics. We're going to do a book club over the second Dream Searchers book. So if anybody's interested in that, you can hit us up over on the Blue Collar Mystics Telegram group. But I
Right
love this.
on, Abby. One last question for you. If you had the power, oh, no, sorry, let me start over. Last question. This is from an Alan Watts quote, and I don't expect you to answer in any particular way. I just thought it'd be funny to ask you this. You probably know the quote. He's like, I wonder what you would do if you had the power to dream any dream you wanted to. What would you say?
I have the power to dream any dream I want to.
Yes. Yes, it's not an if, it's like when will you discover it and when will you start to practice it? I love that.
I'll quote reality transurfing right here. I do not hope and I do not wish. I intend.
Yeah, I love that. Wow. You're a total badass, Abby. I'm really happy we were connected. Just want to remind people that you can find Abby frequently on the Weaving Spiders Welcome. And I'm just really happy that we became friends here and looking forward to chatting some more. And I'll definitely talk to you down the future road about dream interpretation and things of that nature. And maybe we'll meet up in the dream world one day. We'll see. We'll see.
Let's do
I've
this.
always wanted to go to Mount Shasta. So
Well, we can go to Washington Monument too. So,
yeah, any kind of obelisk would be fun.
yep.
All right, my friend. I hope you have a fantastic weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.